Hey guys, in today's video I wanted to look at all the different modes we have in the game, and I wanted to kind of analyze them and see which one of them is kind of the most worth it for your time. Now when it comes to judging these modes, I think that there's three different important criteria that we should kind of consider to help us form an informed opinion about these different modes and see which one is the most worth it. So the most important criteria, in my opinion, is the amount of fun that you have playing. Now the idea of fun is pretty subjective and everyone has their own opinion about what's fun and what's not fun. So just as an example, fishing, I know that a lot of players really like to fish and wouldn't mind spending hours fishing in the game. But let's face it, the rewards really probably aren't that great. So to be honest, I'm going to stay away from this idea of fun. If you guys have fun playing certain game modes, then I would really recommend you guys just to stick to those game modes. In this video, I'm just going to be looking at a more objective approach and talking about the other two criteria, which in my opinion are the rewards in a mode. So for example, the gems that you get, the legendary items, and also the materials, and also special items like this Abyssal Essence here. And also I'm going to be looking at the experience, which in my opinion isn't as important as the rewards, such as the items that you get. So the reason I say that is because this game obviously has its server paragon level, which over time is kind of the great equalizer in the game. So over time, people will be able to catch up more easily as they get a higher XP reward. So if you're slacking a bit on your XP, isn't that bad. But if you slack on a lot of these rewards, then for example, the normal gems here, you're going to have a much worse time because your secondary stats are going to be much worse, so you're going to be much weaker in PvP events and also PvE. So with that said, I'm going to start with these two new game modes that we've recently got into the game, and that's the Castle Erebban and also the Abyssal Verge. So the rewards for these two new modes are actually pretty similar. It's just the gameplay that differs a bit. So I'm kind of going to group them together a bit, but I'll also talk about the differences. So for both modes, you can get bound and unbound normal gems. This was recently added into the patch, so now you don't really have to farm for layers if you don't want to, and instead you can just keep spamming these modes until you're capped on your 63 unbound and 63 bound gems for the week. So this is a really great change because now people aren't really competing for layers. In these two new modes, you're kind of in your own instance, so you can kind of play at your own pace and collect up all the gems. So this is really great in my opinion. This is one of the best things about these two new modes. The other thing that you do get is the Abyssal Essence. So from the recent patch notes, you're guaranteed to get 1 Abyssal Essence per run if your score is over 1000 in the Abyssal Verge. And if you reach up to level 5 or higher, danger level, you're guaranteed to get 1 Abyssal Essence. But for both of these modes, the higher you go, I think you actually have a chance to also get 2 Abyssal Essence per run. At least that's what I was able to get for testing for some of my runs, but I think that this is just a chance to get 2. It's not like a guaranteed thing. If your score is really high, for example, it just seems to be a chance. So the Abyssal Essence, you have to collect 10 Abyssal Essence and turn them in at the NPC here. And if you do that, you're guaranteed to get a rune. So that rune can obviously be normal, can be blue rune, or can be a legendary rune. But I'm going to be honest, the chances that you're going to get a good rune from this are actually pretty low. You're most likely just going to get a white common rune. And I'm actually going to be doing another video where I do a couple hundred of these Abyssal Essence turn-ins and show you guys the results I get. But for now, just know that you can get a guaranteed rune from this, and in all other modes of the game, you can also get runes, but it's not a guaranteed drop like this. So I guess this is a nice to have for now. I wish they would buff it a bit, to be honest. But for now, I guess this is an okay reward. And then lastly, you do get legendary items also, but compared to other game modes, you're really not getting that many legendary items per hour. The final reward, which isn't mentioned on the reward screen, is Monster Essence, and this can drop from killing monsters in either mode or from opening up chests in Castle Erebban. So this is actually another pretty good reward because every 10 that you collect, you can turn in the bestiary, and you can get extra experience and also extra items. So now let's move on to talk about the experience gain for these two new modes and also talk about some of the differences between them. So I'm going to start with Castle Erebban. Now for Castle Erebban, I've already shared this in my last video, but it actually has the highest XP per hour from any game mode in the game, and it's just insane. It's not even close compared to the other game modes, as you'll see. I'm going to be doing a fair comparison between all of the game modes, keeping the XP penalty at 100% and comparing how they do. So for Castle Erebban, the highest amount of XP I was able to get per hour is 10.5 million at 100%, and I did a couple of tests just because I wanted to see what would be the best way to run it, and I already shared this in my last video, like I said, but basically 2-ban runs are the best way to do it, and you want to be getting to level 8 as much as you can, and it actually doesn't matter too much whether you escape or die. The important thing is just to open as many chests as possible and keep killing as many monsters as possible just to maximize your XP gain. So I've already shown the most optimal way to run Castle Erebban, but basically I ran it for 2-man for 1 hour, and I was turning the monster essence every time it was available when I had 10 of them, and the XP per hour, like I said, I got 10.5 million. This was with the monster essence tower, the Accursed Tower for the clan, and then I ran the same test again without the monster essence tower, and I was able to get 10 million XP per hour. So this is just a small amount less than the 10.5 million. So obviously it isn't affected too much by the Monster Essence Tower, because most of the Monster Essence that you're getting is from chests rather than from killing monsters. So I'm not really surprised there. So this could be a really good advantage, because for modes like open world farming, there's a huge difference between your clan having the tower and not having the tower. You're just going to get a lot less Monster Essence and also a lot less XP and rewards per hour. So I also did the same test solo with the tower and without the tower. And with the tower solo I got 9.6 million XP, which is still insane, and without the Monster Essence Tower I got 9.1 million XP, which is still better than every single other game mode, which I'm going to be talking about in this video. So before I move on to talk about the Abyssal Verge, something interesting which I noticed, which was kind of a difference between these two new modes, is the Monster Essence pickup. So it seems like whenever a Monster Essence drops in the Erebban Castle, it's always going to get picked up no matter how far away you are from it. But in the Abyssal Verge I actually had to physically move pretty close to the Monster Essence before it was picked up, and if I was moving away from it off screen, it would pretty much never get picked up. So that's kind of an advantage that Erebban has over the Abyssal Verge, and also the XP, obviously, like I said, is much higher compared to the Abyssal Verge. So now moving on to talk about the Abyssal Verge, well, the XP that I got from it, I did one test, which was a solo test with the Monster Essence Tower, and for that test I actually got 6.85 million XP, which is actually almost 1 million less XP per hour compared to Erebban Castle. Now the way I ran this mode was, like I said, running solo, and I was trying to kill as many monsters and elites as I could. So the scores I had for each individual run vary from about 1.7k to about 2.3k, and I seem to get very similar rewards for these two new modes. So in my opinion, between these two I would probably stick with Erebban Castle. As long as you can get to level 8 consistently with your character, then it's probably worth sticking with Erebban Castle. Otherwise it might be worth doing your own test and seeing which mode is better for you. But just to talk about some of the disadvantages that applies to both of these two new modes, well, the legendary drop rate, I noticed that it was quite a bit lower than open world. So for open world farming I was getting something like 6 to 7 legendary items per hour, whereas for these two new modes I was getting something between 2 to 4 legendary items per hour, which is pretty bad in my opinion. So you're not really going to be farming these two new modes for legendaries. When they were first released, I remember the Abyssal Verge being really insane for farming legendary items. I was getting something like 3 legendary items every run, so it was like every 4 minutes I would get 3 legendary items, which was just insane. But this seems to have been toned down a lot, so it isn't really as good as it was before. The other thing which is kind of annoying about these two new modes is that you can't pre-farm items, so it doesn't really seem to matter the difficulty that you set in game. The items that are dropped in these two new modes always seem to drop based off your Paragon level, so you're not really going to be able to farm future Inferno difficulties. So the next disadvantage in both of these modes is group play. So running in a group can actually be pretty annoying, and it might actually reduce the XP per hour and also the rewards that you get from these two new modes, especially in Castle Erebban, where if you have too many players you won't be able to open that many chests, and like I said, it will have much less XP per hour. So it just really depends. If you can find a good group to run this and you enjoy running in a group, I would still do it, because you will still get your normal gems. It might be something worth considering. The other thing worth talking about is that even if you have a group of 4 players, you're actually not able to cap any of your daily gems, which is really frustrating. I wish that you were also able to cap the daily gems. So if you're playing Les, for example, you're going to be able to cap both your weekly gems as well as your daily gems if you're in a 4-man team. But in these two new modes it doesn't seem to be the case. You just don't even get the buff under your character portrait that tells you that you're getting the daily gems. So I wish that Blizzard would kind of add this, that you're able to cap some of your daily gems in these two new modes, and it would just make them a lot better than they currently are. So the last disadvantage which I'm going to talk about, which applies for both of these modes, is that you actually don't get codex points for completing a run in either of these modes. But the same could honestly be said about open world. You don't really get codex points for completing that. The only codex points you do get from both of these modes, which is the same as open world, is turning in your monster essence. So you will still get the 40 battle pass from turning in the bestiary. So overall, is it worth to run these two new modes? Well, I would definitely say yes, simply because of these normal gems. So definitely I would be running these just enough to cap the normal gems. After that, it's up to you. It's really your call. If you value XP per hour, let's say you're pushing your Paragon, then it definitely is worth it. If you're trying to farm runes and just want that guaranteed drop rate, then it might also be worth it. So I'm going to be moving on now to talk about the next game mode, which I want to compare to these two, which is Oblivion Pillars and Hellslayer Bounties. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because I'm going to be making another in-depth video about this, which is probably going to be my next video. If you've been playing these two new modes, more specifically the Oblivion Pillars, you'll actually have noticed that it's the best way to farm legendary items in the game currently, and it's actually the best way to pre-farm items with good stats like triple stats and 4 stats. So that in itself makes these modes worth farming. Now, as far as the XP goes, these two modes actually had really good XP, and it was actually the best XP in the game until the Erebban castle came around. So it still is better XP than Abyssal Verge, at least for me. So the way I tested the XP in this mode is I ran 40 pillars in a row, and this took me about 20 minutes. And the amount of XP I got worked out to be roughly 7.7 million XP per hour, which is still about 1 million XP more than Abyssal Verge, but it's actually 2 million XP less than the Erebban Tower. So I wouldn't recommend running this for XP. It's more just for items, and it's the best source to get legendary items. So moving on to talk about the disadvantages of this mode, well, the obvious disadvantage is that you actually need Terra Essences to open, which is kind of a limited resource in this game. Unless you're a whale that has kind of unlimited platinum and you're able to buy unlimited Terra Essence, you're not really going to be running these back to back and just popping them like crazy. So that takes me to my next point, which is that to be running these Terra Essence, you're most likely going to be needing to run Terra Rifts, which is still actually one of my least favorite modes to run, and I'm going to be talking more in depth about that mode later in the video. The other thing which only applies to Oblivion Pillars is that after running 70 of them per week, they become super challenging to the point of being pretty much unclearable, so you won't really be getting any good rewards after you do 70 of them per week, but I appreciate that most of you aren't really going to be doing that, and at least this limitation doesn't apply to Hellslayer Bounties. So as far as the other disadvantages, I found it really annoying playing these modes because of the fact that you had to teleport constantly from zone to zone. I really wish that they would just get rid of this. It's really annoying to complete an Oblivion Pillar, and then while teleporting to the next zone, a random mob just randomly hits you and resets your teleport. If they would just make it all in the same mode and you would just keep running them, that would make it a bit better and have a bit more quality of life. The last really obvious disadvantage I'm going to talk about is that Oblivion Pillars especially can be really difficult for some players to clear, but for that we've got the Hellslayer Bounties, but Hellslayer Bounties actually have slightly worse drop chance compared to the Oblivion Pillars, so that's just something that might be worth thinking about. So is it worth running Oblivion Pillars and Hellslayer Bounties? Well, if you have a lot of time to spend during the week to run your terrorists, then I would still say yes, especially running 10 of these per week. I've already covered this in my other video. You're guaranteed to get one triple or triple 4 item per week, which is really, really good. So if you're able to run 10 of these at least, then I would still recommend keeping them in your weekly routine. I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about terrorists, and boy oh boy, where do I start with terrorists? I know I said I was going to try to be objective in this video, but I kind of can't help but give my personal feelings about terrorists. It really does remind me of a job that you really hate, but you still have to run just to earn some money for yourself. And in this case, the money looks like Terra Essence, which just gives you 400 platinum. So you still have to clock in and clock out of your job. So it has a limited time that it's open. So yeah. It's just all in all very annoying. I guess we can list off some of the advantages. There's not really that many. So it was recently buffed, and if you complete 4 spires now, you're guaranteed at least 1 Terra Essence of those 4 spires, and probably for the other 3 you won't really get anything. The item drop rate was supposedly also buffed, but I'm not really getting that many items from it. Maybe it's a little bit better than it was before. I guess the other good thing is that it's actually good to cap your daily gems in this mode. I do cap my gems quite easily if I'm running in a group of 4, but that kind of leads me to my disadvantages, because if you're running in a group and if other people also run in a group and you get into the same instance, then the mode just turns into a lag fiesta. So if you're running at peak hours, then it's going to be really tough. And the other thing is that the XP is completely trash in this mode. It's about 2.5 times slower than running Erebban, and actually one of the worst modes to run for XP. I think only running dungeons was a bit worse than this. So this gave me about 4.1 million XP per hour, which is pretty bad. Like I said, you're not really going to be running this for XP because it's not really spammable. It's like open 13 minutes in a half an hour window. The times are just super confusing. I don't know why they have the times like this in a mobile game. They should just make this like open all the time, just like we have with Elder Rifts and with Erebban and with Abyssal Verge. I also don't understand the 10 weekly limit which we have. They're already annoying as hell to run. It takes 13 minutes to run, and most likely you're going to get 1 Terra Essence, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So if you're lucky, I guess you can make 800 Platinum for the 13 minutes that you're clocking into your job. So overall, I'm very sorry to say that this is probably one of the worst modes to run. It just feels like a necessary evil to run this, just to run the 10 weekly Oblivion Pillars and get your triple stat or 4 stat item. Let's talk about open world farming now and compare it to the other modes that we have. So I feel like I used to spam open world farm more than most players, so I'm definitely qualified to talk about this. This is kind of my area of expertise. So overall, I would say that you do get quite a decent amount of legendaries per hour, probably more than the new modes, the Erebban and the Abyssal Verge. But it's still kind of worse than the Oblivion Pillars. I feel like in Oblivion Pillars I'm getting more legendaries per hour, but that's kind of to be expected because you do have to spend the Terra Essence, but you also do get better quality of loot inside the Oblivion Pillars. I feel like it's been a while since I got a triple or triple 4 from open world farming, and I'm probably going to lower the amount of time that I open world farm because, to be honest, I feel like Erebban is a bit more worth for the time spent because you're getting all of those gems. So speaking about gems, the good thing about open world is you can obviously cap your daily gems if you're playing a party of 4. So that's great. The other good thing about it is that it's still great for materials, probably one of the best ways to get materials if you need to get your gear up to rank 30. I'm really hoping that they do increase the gear ranks, or at least give us a way to spend our extra materials from these modes. But for now, it's still a great mode to catch up on material farming, especially if you're farming in a spot like Zoltan Cool. I think it gives quite a lot of materials there. The other thing, which probably is both an advantage and disadvantage, is that you're able to AFK or follow when you need it. So I know that a lot of people like to AFK farm. Personally, it's not really my cup of tea, like I said, but I guess it is a good option. So the way I tested the XP here is I ran for 1 hour in the Realm of Damnation, the Forest of Misery spot mostly, and I tried both 4-man and solo setups, and both honestly gave the same amount of XP, and I got about 6.3 million XP per hour while my clan had the Monster Essence Tower, and this dropped down all the way to 4.7 million XP per hour when we didn't have the tower. So that's kind of another disadvantage, is that you kind of need the Monster Essence Tower to make this mode good, whereas this doesn't apply so much to the new modes that we got, the Erebban or the Abyssal Verge. The thing which can be a bit annoying about open world farming is that sometimes, depending on the time that you farm, there can be a lot of competition for the good spots in the game. I remember back in the day racing with Barb players who really wanted to farm in the same spot as me while not in the same party, so that always brings back good memories. But that's about all I have to say for open world. So is it worth your time? Is it worth farming open world? Well, I'd say if you really need materials to get yourself up to rank 30 gear, then it still is worth running this, but otherwise there's probably some other modes which are more worthy of your time. This used to be the only way to get Monster Essence back in the day, so if you wanted to turn in your daily 3 books, then this would be the way to do it. But now we have the Erebban and also the Abyssal Verge, which are their own instance, so you won't have to compete with other people, which is kind of a positive. I mean, unless you're looking to make some new barbarian friends, then yeah, I'm probably not going to be bothering with open world farming too much anymore. So moving on now to talk about the Accursed Towers. A lot of players wanted me to include it in this video. It seems to be kind of a player favorite, at least in my clan. So I do kind of like this mode, if I'm being honest. And the great thing about Accursed Towers is you do get some weekly chest rewards, and these weekly chest rewards don't take a long time to complete at all. And also this tower is always open all the time. I'm looking at you, terrorists. What the hell are you doing? So Accursed Towers are actually really fun, and they probably are the fastest way to cap your daily gems. The downside is that you do need to be in a party of 4 with your clanmates, so if your clanmates aren't really available at the same time as you, then you won't really have any luck to cap your daily gems, so that's kind of sad. The other thing is that I've been hearing that this mode is the best for rune drops, and I have had pretty decent luck. I do have to do a bit more testing to find that out for myself, but so far, the results do look really promising. It does seem to be one of the best ways to get runes. Hopefully it doesn't get nerfed if that's the case. Some downsides for this mode is that it has pretty bad XP. It's actually turned out to be 3 times slower than running Erebban. So I ran in a party of 4 and we just kept blasting as fast as we could. I didn't really end up turning in many of the shards. Maybe that's where I went wrong, I'm not sure. But I didn't really end up getting that much good XP. I got about 3.8 million XP per hour, which is pretty bad. The other thing is that you can't pre-farm items in here, just like with Erebban and with Abyssal, you can't set the difficulty, so the items that do drop will be at your Paragon level, so that's kind of sad. But other than that, I would recommend farming this mode, at least for the weekly chest rewards. They are pretty quick to get done. I actually do have a pretty old guide which still applies now, which is the fastest way to cap your Accursed Towers, so I will be linking that in the description if you do want to check that one out. Last but not least, we have random dungeons. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with dungeons. I really am a big fan of the random dungeon feature that they've added to the game. Before that, running dungeons was really rough. Like, we just spammed the same dungeon like 20 times in a row and you'd fall asleep. But now the random dungeon feature does make it a bit more fun. So obviously this is the only consistent way to farm set items in the game. You do get a few set items here and there as rewards from events and also from the Accursed Tower. But consistently, this is the only way to farm them, so I'm not going to tell you guys to skip on this. Since set items make up half of your gear, it still is really important to farm these. Other than that, they're actually pretty good to cap your daily gems. You also do get runes in here. I think the only legendary rune drop I've got so far, since the legendary runes were introduced, has been in a dungeon. So the disadvantage of these is that it's actually the worst XP in the game. So if you're looking to level up, which I'm not sure why you'd want to do that in random dungeons, but it's actually the worst XP. I wouldn't recommend you do it here. The other thing is that if you are playing solo without friends, there's always a chance that you get queued up into a bad group or with slackers, and the run might take a long time. But the good thing is that most of the time you'll probably get a different group every time you run, and then sometimes you might also recognize some players from your server or from your clan, and you could always end up making a party with them. I just find that it's a really good activity to do as downtime for any of the other activities. So say you have to run your terror rifts, you could always run random dungeons in between them, which is what I've seen a lot of players do, and it's actually one of my favorite things to do. I will also say that it's probably a good idea to include 3 random dungeons into your daily routine, because you do get a free set item from the codex if you do complete those. So overall, it's just a really nice activity. You can kind of go at your own pace. You're not really in a rush to collect all the best items all at once. I just really wish that Blizzard adds some new dungeons for us. It has been a long time since they've added any new dungeons into the game, and I'm hoping that this does get added to the game sooner rather than later. That's about all of the modes that I wanted to cover in this video, guys. I hope that it's been informative. So just as a bonus tip for those of you who made it all the way to the end of the video, I have updated my DI resources sheet, which I'll have a link in the description, and I have included all of the data for the XP per hour in my sheet, and you can also actually edit the sheet and put in your own XP penalty if you want to find out how long it would take to level running certain activities. I guess I can quickly show you guys how it works before I end the video. So it's actually pretty simple. I've got all of the modes listed here with the XP per hour on 100%. And if you just enter your XP penalty here, let's say I'm a real mad lad and I grind 5% XP penalty, let's just put 5% here. You'll see that we've got the XP power updated here for your own specific penalty, and it will also tell you the time taken to level up. So let's say that I wanted to level up on 5%. Just running Erebban 2-man with the Monster Essence Tower, this would take me less than 7 hours to level up. And then if I'm super crazy and I just wanted to do it only with running dungeons, then I guess this would take me about 20.2 hours straight running dungeons. And yeah, I'm sure you'd get a lot of greens running that, but you'd probably want to uninstall the game after running a session like that. So anyway, guys, I hope that you found this video informative. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching, and I'm going to catch you all in my next video. Peace.